The New York Knicks have a championship-defining decision to make. Who's their fifth starter? Is Deuce the truth? I'm joined by CBS Sports' Sam Quinn to find out.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I am a New York City native. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the New York Knicks for nearly a decade. And I'm your Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. So be sure to check out my work over there. This is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks team, the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 whole days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans and subscribe on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. On today's show, I am once again going to be joined by your guy and mine, Sam Quinn of CBS Sports, to talk through a whole bunch of Knicks-related topics, including debating who should be the fifth starter, who will be the fifth starter, and just how high the Knicks championship odds are. One final note before we get this one going. We recorded this last week before the news that Fred VanVleet tore his ACL and was likely to miss the entire season, so that is part of the reason we were so high on Houston and also why we don't bring up that particular factor. But without further ado, let's get into the conversation right now with Sam. I know you don't have a ton of time left, but I wanted to hit you with some rapid fire Knicks questions. The starting lineup to me is maybe the single biggest question around this team right now. Tom Thibodeau very famously played a lineup, I think 500 more possessions than any other lineup in the NBA last year. It was 1,800 possessions for that starting five of Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns. It was very famously not good after a hot start to the season. I think in 2025, something like a -3 net rating per 100 possessions. The offense tanked once teams started putting their bigs on Josh Hart, their wings on Karl Anthony Towns, and Tom Thibodeau refused to make an adjustment until they went down 0-2 against the Indiana Pacers. I'll ask you two versions of this question. What do you think Mike Brown will do? And what do you think he should do? Because there's a world where, and I don't even know if this is hubris, he might just say, hey, with some tactical adjustments, I'm just going to put our 5 best players out there. And I think that includes Josh Hart. He might look at the success Mitchell Robinson had in the playoffs and say, hey, I want to play double big. He might do what some of the nerds who follow the Knicks have been calling for, people like me, and saying, hey, the Knicks are really, really great for years on end. I like that hand raise, Sam. That's exciting. And they've been really great whenever Deuce McBride is on the floor. How about you just play him and Jalen Brunson together and see how it works? And Tom Thibodeau had a very specific anxiety about two small guards together. Him and Brunson and Quickly were always fantastic together. He didn't trust it. Brunson and Deuce, fantastic together. He didn't trust it. Let's start off with what you think Mike Brown will do, and then I want to hear your opinion on what he should do.
I think he'll start Mitchell Robinson, but the fundamental question here is what kind of team do you want to be? Mm-hmm. I think any version of the fifth starter, whether it's Mitch or it's Josh or it's Deuce, you're probably going to be a 50 to 55 win team. But when you get to the playoffs, I think something that really struck me, most notably in the Detroit series, but then at points again in the Pacers series, especially when they were pulling guys off the bench that they hadn't used all season. What kind of team do you want to be? What is your identity? What can you fall back on and do better than anybody else? So there's a version of this team with Mitchell Robinson at center that's just bigger and burlier than everybody else and is winning on the offensive glass like the Tibbs teams used to do with Hartenstein, and is maybe better defensively, can put Towns at the 4 where he was much better defensively in Minnesota. And your goal in that world is to maybe skirt the top 10 on defense, be like the 12th or 11th best defense, and then be a very high-ranked offense, but one that's winning because of offensive rebounding and kind of playing dirty, like some of the earlier Tibbs teams. Mm-hmm. Or do you want to have Towns at center and be the 5-out devastating pick-and-roll team between Brunson and Cat, which they kind of abandoned last year, as you said, the moment opponents started putting bigs on Hart and kind of disarming the play that way. If you want to be that team, and I think it's very accessible, it's available to them, you have to put Deuce as the fifth starter at shooting guard. Now, there are pros and cons to it. I think the offense would be great. I also think you are going to have two small guards, so in the wrong matchups, it's going to be problematic. It's going to leave you very vulnerable to switch issues, and they switched so much against Boston. I think that's something that Mike Brown is going to want to experiment with a little bit more, especially in certain playoff matchups. I personally would start McBride, and I would be open-minded about making changes throughout the season or based on matchup. And I would tell Mitch and I would tell Deuce and I would tell Josh, like, be ready. It's a long season. It's 82 games. Guys are going to get hurt. We're going to have certain matchups that require different things. Ultimately, I trust, obviously, it's a tiny sample, but the sample when Deuce was with the 4 other starters was very, very good. I think he has the right skill set. And even defensively, even though he's so small, he defends the point of attack so well, and he's so much more comfortable navigating screens than Bridges is, that I really would like to get Bridges off of these like top guard matchups. And I don't want to strain OG by making him guard those guys all season. In the playoffs, it's another story, right? I want Deuce as the guy chasing point guards for 25, 30 minutes a night. I think that cleans up a lot of other things defensively. That's what I would do. I suspect it'll be Mitch. The thing that scares me about it being Mitch, it's not necessarily a basketball concern. It's a health issue, right? I don't like the idea of Mitch being in the starting lineup from night one, playing 25 to 30 minutes, and then getting to May and June where he was so impactful last year, but he has, this nagging injury and he missed 10 games for this or that. It's kind of ironic. I mean, I look back at the season Mitch just had, and I hate saying this, but I feel like the reason he was able to be so impactful against Boston and Indiana was that he didn't play until March. And that's not just a matter of being fresh, right? It means if your season starts on March 5th, that means you have like 20 total opportunities to tear an ACL or to pop an Achilles or to suffer this injury or that injury or whatever. You just have fewer chances to, get hurt in any meaningful way. So it's likelier that you're going to be available when it actually counts. If you're asking Mitch to play 60 times instead of 15 or 20, that's 3 or 4 times more opportunities for him to like land wrong on his ankle and there's his season, or, tweak something in his knee or this or that. Like, there's a part of me that almost wants to put Mitch on ice until like Valentine's Day or like the All-Star break or something and just say, what really matters is having this guy available in the playoffs because he's the one who gives you so many different looks, right? He's the guy who opens up playing big. You could also play him without Cat in some minutes and not worry about being tiny and getting bullied that way. So I am Team Deuce. I want to be very careful with Mitch's minutes throughout the regular season. I just think because it was something that we saw succeed in the playoffs, Mike Brown isn't going to rock the boat too much, and he's probably going to start with Mitch.
But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Guys, my favorite part is that it kicks in really, really fast. I have major crashes in energy throughout my day, and I need to know that I have a little boost available if I need it. And the great part is it's sugar-free, and I ultimately don't have to worry about crashing later, which is really, really enticing. So enough with boring, flavorless coffee. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Yeah, I would be stunned if Deuce McBride starts. I really appreciate you as a national guy, though, making that case because I haven't heard too many people outside of Knicksland do it. Interestingly enough, there's an argument I don't think would ever happen because of politics and what they traded for him. But there's an argument for bringing Mikal off the bench and putting in Deuce for him. That lineup of Brunson, Deuce, Josh, where you get like the rebounding and physicality from Josh that you kind of need to offset the fact that like Tom Thibodeau's real concern there that you are extremely small in the backcourt with Brunson and Deuce. That 5-man lineup last year, second best 5-man unit in the NBA that played at least 100 possessions, plus 43.7 net rating. I didn't write down the number of possessions. I think it was not a large amount. It was something like 200 possessions on the season. So I don't know if that's a real enough sample size to include anything, but on paper, it makes a lot of sense. I've referenced the stat a million times. He's the only player in the Knicks in all 5 of their best lineups last season. Really, it seemed like it just unlocked a different version of Cat when you, one, insulated him with shooting, two, like putting him in there for Hart or Mikal. Like it's just a guy who's like job in the ecosystem offensively is to just draw attention away, is to space, to give you a little bit of what Dante DiVincenzo gave you, someone who could move around the court and draw a defender 26, 27 feet away from the basket versus OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, who like toe that 3-point line and don't command quite the same respect as shooters. There's even a world where like you could throw out someone like Gershon Yabusele and say he would make a lot of sense in the starting lineup as someone who's a mobile big on defense, even if he's not elite on that end of the floor, who can shoot above the break threes, who's really good in transition. I think that'd be a fascinating guy to pair with Cat. Like there's a lot of different versions of it. My biggest concern with Mitch, aside from the one you rightfully mentioned, and I would not play him more than 18 minutes per game in the regular season, whether he's starting or not. Like it is not even just the catastrophic injuries with him. It is that like you just get to a point with him where he's on the ground 4 times a game and he's limping and he's jogging. And what stood out, like, and I think some of this was that they just had such a slow ramp up for him. But in the playoffs, like the cardio was just at a different level that I've ever seen from Mitchell Robinson. A couple years ago, he made this adjustment. He really bulked up. It helped him in some areas, but he lost some athleticism. He lost some speed, and his ability to like sustain like rabid effort over the course of a full game is not really viable. And the fact that he can do it for 18 minutes now, like I wouldn't push it far past that. The other big concern there is like, I think teams like the Pacers, as good as the defender as Mitch is, like teams that are able to put him and Cat in space simultaneously and run multiple actions over the course of possession that challenge both of them. I think the Knicks will maybe be better for that, better at defending that, and more prepared with a full offseason if Mike Brown knows going in that's going to be the starting lineup. I just think that's always going to be an issue against the best offense in the NBA. It's always going to be an issue in the playoffs. But Sam, I think you'd agree, like the biggest thing for the Knicks is to just use the regular season as a testing ground, because especially with what happened to Tyrese Halliburton, what happened to Jason Tatum, there is a really healthy margin for error for the Knicks to mess around and still get a 2 seed. They might find, as I think they would have found last year, that like you experiment with some lineups, you might find ones better than the ones you were insisting on playing 25 minutes a game. And in turn, you're a little bit more prepped for the playoffs because you're saying like, hey, I don't have to guess like with my season on the line that Landry Shamet and DeLon Wright might be helpful. I know that they'll be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, they've beaten Cleveland in a playoff series without home court advantage in the past. I would not fixate on seeding too much. I think Orlando, frankly, might be a better regular season team just because defense tends to be a little bit more consistent than offense does. And I think their defense is going to be somewhere in the top 3. Like, they're not as good as Oklahoma City, but probably as good as almost anybody else if they stay healthy. So I would not fixate on seeding. I think you're right. I think the important thing this regular season, figure out who you are, figure out what tools are in your tool chest. So when you get to the playoffs, you can actually deploy everything and make the most of the talent that you have, because they don't really have the resources anymore to drastically tweak the roster. It kind of has to be these players. What you brought up with Mikal was really interesting to me because he does not want to space the floor, right? He wants to dribble around and take his mid-range jumpers and like run the offense. So if you're bringing him off the bench, you can devote more of his minutes to bench lineups, and that opens up some doors to potentially make him a little bit more productive. The thing with Mikal that's going to make or break this for him is he going to be more willing to actually take contact and play physical, right? Like, you can't be an all defense caliber wing if you're this afraid of a screen on defense. And that was one of the big problems for him last year. He never gets to the line either, right? I just want to see a more physical version of Mikal. I know he never misses games, and maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah.
If you told me that, like, I mean, Mikal's never missed a game in his entire NBA career, so not really worth predicting. But, like, if you told me they got 60 games out of Mikal instead of 80 next year, but they were 60 really, like, rough and tumble physical games, I'd feel a lot better about the Knicks, because he can't be the guy they traded for playing this way. I just think it's that simple. If you're going to start him and he's going to be at best the number 3 option on offense, and he's not going to be playing as many minutes with the bench where there are more opportunities for him to create, if he's not going to be willing to like fight through screens on defense, that's not a player you trade 5 first-round picks for. If they're going to get the value out of him they paid, he's got to be a little bit more physical than that.
I'm going through his game log right now because there was a here I have it up. There was a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 game stretch where he only in 2 of those games did he shoot 1 or more free throws. Like it was inexcusable at times. And then after that, there were another 3 in the next 5 where he didn't take a free throw. Like he was allergic to getting to the line. I had the exact same conclusion. I was like, all right, well, this is why he's played every single game. He's never taken contact. He's never really risking injury. You made the point earlier, but he did start looking like an all defense level guy again when the Knicks moved him off the ball. And we remember against the Boston Celtics, both game 1 and game 2, and one with him stripping the ball from Jalen Brown after tracking perfectly, one like helping on Jason Tatum and knocking his pass away and stealing it. Like him making off-ball plays allowed the Knicks to pull off like one of the greater upsets in recent NBA playoff history, knock out the defending champs. Like he still has special instincts, special abilities off the ball. There are just going to be moments where he has to be on the ball and he has to be good enough. And he wasn't close to that level. I do wonder if maybe Mike Brown and look, this has been teams have been trying this for 10 years and it hasn't really worked out. If they can get more consistency out of Karl-Anthony Towns and just knowing what he's supposed to be doing defensively, I think some of the reticence at times from Mikal, it wasn't always physical. It was, hey, I have no idea where Cat is, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And that's going to be something that Mike Brown hopefully can work on. I don't know that scenario where Tom Thibodeau failed. I think that's probably more of a Karl-Anthony Towns issue. Final question, and it could be 30 seconds or less, just because I know we're pretty much out of time here. But where do you have the Knicks on the list of title contenders behind the Oklahoma City? But before we wrap up with Sam, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. If you don't have a full picture, well, you end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put up organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And that's why this is ultimately so appealing to me, guys. I have so much anxiety about my finances and about getting it organized. Having an app that does it for me, that puts it all in one place, that puts me and my fiance on the same page, it is all incredibly helpful. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. It's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Thunder.
I think the 3 best teams in the NBA right now are all in the West. It's Oklahoma City, then Denver, then Houston. I would then have the Knicks in a tier after that with Cleveland, with the Lakers. And then, like, you could talk. I want to see Orlando before I make any declarations. I think I'm higher on Orlando than most are, but I do need to see it before I put them in that second tier. But I would say I'd broadly have the Knicks as a tier 2 contender in a conference with no tier 1 contenders. So that means there is a very viable path to the NBA Finals. And once you get to the finals, anything can happen, right? The Pacers, I don't want to say probably we're going to win the title last year, but we're winning the game when Tyrese Halliburton left. We're winning game 7 of the finals. If you match up correctly with the team that you play in the finals, and I think Oklahoma City is problematic for the Knicks, but I think Denver is a much more favorable matchup to them for a variety of reasons. And I think Houston, and I think Houston is a more favorable matchup to the Knicks than, Oklahoma City is. So you don't want to sit here and say, oh, I don't think they can beat Oklahoma City, therefore I don't think they can win the championship, because it's a long season. And as we saw, especially with the Knicks, they played Boston last year. And I'll be frank about this. I know I'm on a Knicks podcast. I kind of think Boston outplayed them and mostly just missed shots in games 1 and 2. That can happen, right? Those are legitimate victories. You don't have to be the better team to win. You just have to win 4 games out of 7. And the reverse of that is sometimes you're the better team and you lose, right? There's the scenario where, like, the Knicks are in the second round and they're playing the Hawks and their shots don't go in. And that's how it goes. I think they have a legitimate chance to win the championship this year. Will I pick them if they make the NBA Finals against any of those top 3 teams? I'd have to see, but my answer is probably no. But we're within the margin of error at that point.
Mhm.
I think they're right neck and neck with Cleveland in an Eastern Conference Finals type of series. Orlando could get there. I think I'm going to pick Cleveland by a nudge, just by a little bit to win the East. But that could really go either way. This is going into a season. Probably the highest I would put my personal odds on the Knicks winning a championship since, I don't know, my
Mid-90s.
lifetime. Not
Yeah.
even because Michael Jordan was in the 90s. There is
Yeah.
no Michael Jordan now, right? Is this? I think you could make a compelling argument that the Knicks have better championship odds going into the 25-26 season than they've had since the 70s, right? Just because at any given point in the 90s, Michael Jordan was such a mountain that you had to
Oh,
climb.
you had the baseball years, I guess, would be the counterpoint.
Oh, yeah, I guess 94 you're probably right there. Yeah.
But it's a good argument, right? Because
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think the Knicks are like right there. I would have obviously Oklahoma City #1 going away. I think I'd probably have Denver too. I would have the Knicks ahead of the Rockets, and maybe that's putting too much weight on like who the best player on each team is. And I think Jalen Brunson is just a little bit more of a reliable star at this point in the playoffs than Kevin Durant is, even if that is somewhat sacrilegious to say. And I happen to think the Knicks match up with the Nuggets really well. And we've seen Cat play well. So I would have some confidence they could hold their own in that series. Oklahoma City's freaking terrifying. I think they are in their own tier if they shoot the ball better in the playoffs next year. It's possible no one's close, but that is a conversation for another day. Sam Quinn, before I let you go, can you just tell everyone where they can find all your great work?
Just read CBSSports.com, on Twitter, Sam Quinn CBS. I don't know what we have coming out because I just put out a big jersey story yesterday, so I'm not sure what I've got coming out next. I've got more Kawhi thoughts, and I'm going to write. Oh, I've got coach rankings next week.
Oh,
so Knicks fans,
exciting.
keep an eye out. We'll see where Mike Brown falls.
Yeah.
I'm actually still working through that. I don't have an answer right now, but by next week I will. So keep an eye out for that.
I wonder, can Knicks fans be mad like before he's even coached a game for the team? That's an interesting conversation. I bet they will be though. Sam, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. Check him out on CBS Sports and check us out here at Locked On Knicks.